I've been going through the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva. So, it doesn't hurt. I mean, just like to begin, this is not the main topic, it's just, doesn't hurt. So the Rambam Perek Zayin. The Rambam Perek Zayin says that, Hol Rishus Kol Adam Nesunos. Because in Hilchos Tshuva, the Rambam takes up a lot of important issues. I mean, we call them philosophical, hashkafic issues that pertain to Tshuva. He's not just giving you the basic laws of Tshuva, he's giving you the whole framework. I mean, you have to appreciate the godless of the Rambam. By the way, today's a special day, no? Zayin Adar.
Moshe
Rabbeinu's
birthday.
Birthday and the Yortzeit and the birthday, right? So, someone just mentioned to me. So you have to appreciate the greatness of the Rambam. It's like it's hard. As when I read the Rambam over the years, studying his halachic, the Mishnah Torah, and all the other works, the Sefer Mitzvos, and the Mar Nevuchim. Mar Nevuchim, I don't know how popular that is, but you see the godless. It's hard to believe that he's an actual human being. I'm serious. Now, Chazal say that if the Rishonim, if the original Talmidei Chacham, if they're angels, if they're malachim, then we're bnei adam, then we're humans. If they are humans, then we're behemoths. That's what they said. I said, what did they mean by that? That's a very, very profound thought. That means that not that they're greater, of course they're greater, but greater in a different way. You could be greater than someone quantitatively, okay? You're in the same category. He's, I don't know, you have an athlete, the top contenders. Okay, so they're all pretty much in the same category, the same league. Except one's a little bit more, one's a little bit less. You know what I'm saying? It could be this year he won, the next year this guy won. They're in the same league. So the question is, when we talk about these Gedolim, like, the Rishonim, Rambam, Ramban, and, all these great names, Rashi, Tosfos, do we mean to say they're greater than us? I don't think anyone's going to deny that. But how do you mean it? Do you mean in terms of the quantitative? All right, they're more. They, a little bit more than we are. Or no. Another way of understanding it is qualitative. It's like a different bria. Bria is it's like a different creation. So I think what the Chazal are saying when they say that if the Rishonim were like angels, then we're like people, that's what they mean. We're not in the same league. That's what they're saying. We're not. It's hard to imagine the Rambam's accomplishments. I can't believe he's just another person, a human being. It's like he's a higher being. And it's not just him. All the greats. Dor Achador Achador. It's an amazing feature of the Jewish people. I don't think there's any other people that produced such geniuses, great people. Not just tzaddikim, but I'm talking about the intellectual aspect of what they mastered. And generation after generation after generation. You don't have that in which other culture managed to produce? Right? Occasionally you'll have an Einstein, you have this one, you have that one, but it's okay. Here it's a steady stream. Jewish people, Jewish history is a steady stream of Gedolim. Okay, one after the other after the other. It's an amazing thing, and considering that we were in exile most of the time. It's another miracle of Jewish history. Once a nation is driven out of their land and they're in exile and they're dispersed throughout the world, and they're hated and persecuted, but all together, they're finished. A culture like that is not going to survive. They're just assimilated. They're gone in no time. In spite of that, not only did the Jews survive. See, the greatest threat to that is the opposite. It's not the persecution. The greatest threat is the acceptance. Like in America, the tremendous assimilation rate. But how do you even account for a thing like that? He's the only one that I'm familiar that asked the question is who? Anyone? Who asked this question? Mark Twain. You have a computer, you Google Mark Twain's, he wrote an essay on the Jews. It's an amazing, he has such tremendous akara to the Jewish genius and their ability. And so he ends off by saying, what is the secret of the Jew? He ends off with the question, what is the secret of the Jew? You can get that, as I said, you can probably get it. It's an essay, very, very fascinating essay. So that's the point That is the idea that they're trying to convey, that there's a different level of existence, of human existence. Okay? I cite the Rambam, but it's not just the Rambam. But in his particular life, it's not like he had great conditions for learning. Okay? When he was 13 years old already, he had to run, like they had the Almo, I forget the name of the Almo Highs, whatever it is. Yeah? Right. And they were very aggressive. And persecution. They had to leave. And he was on the run for many years until he was there. He even tried to come to, he did come to Eretz Yisrael. He tried to settle, he couldn't. And he wound up, went to Egypt. And there he found a little manucha. But he had a rough life. And you would think, how is it possible to master Kol HaTorah Kula? He mastered it. Not just in terms of the facts, the Bekias, mastered it in terms of the Amkus, the depth, the Sfar. And he writes the Mishnah Torah. As I said, it's hard. It's like an impossibility. How do you have a thing like that? His mind, and then all the philosophical. The Mar Nevuchim is an amazing philosophical work. He mastered all the philosophical, all the sciences, all the philosophy of the time. He studied every religious system in order to be able to show you what's wrong with Avodah Zarah. I mean, he had a purpose. So as I started talking about it, I was like, again, it brings to mind these ideas. How do you do that? And it wasn't just him. There's other Gedolim, the Ramban. Everyone is a tremendous biography. The Rishonim, Tosfos, Rav Haigon, Rav Shri Gaon. Every generation to generation, the Jewish people produced a steady stream of not just scholars. I mean, that's not the right word. It's just super geniuses. Okay? That's something we have to maintain. Okay? Whether that's true, are we still producing? Are we still doing that? That's a good question. We're still Talmid Chacham for sure. I mean, this Talmid, it's cold. Is it a cold air thing, Do you feel cold? I feel cold air.
No.
So either get it warm or like there's no air. I don't want cold air, yeah? I'm just saying that, let me finish my point, then I'll go to Yaakov Meir. That there's definitely big Talmid Chacham today. They know all of Shas. I'm not going to name names, but I don't have to. I'm sure you know the same names that I do. My question is, that's my question. Because you see, in the past generation, names like Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Soloveitchik, like these are not just. Well, he's not in the league. Excuse me, I don't mean to. No, I don't think he.
Oh, Rav Cook?
Here, I don't know enough about Ari Kaplan. He is. I don't know. I'm not here to deny. I'm just saying. My understanding in terms of the godless and learning. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not making a point out of that. I don't know each individual. I haven't had a chance to study every individual. So therefore, I'm not disparaged. That's why I'm not naming names. But I'm mentioning those were not just scholars. You have the Rav Saleh. These are towering Gedolim. Rav Aaron Kotler. You have Gedolei Hador. Each generation has its Gedolim. I'm not saying we don't have Gedolim, but that's a relative thing. Because that's what the Gemara says. Yiftach b'doro is kishmul b'doro. I mean, you go to the leaders. Okay, so the Jews have Torah leaders to go to. Okay, the question is, are they simply because that's the generation? But in the generation, that's the thing about Noach. Like Noach is tzaddik, right? He was wholehearted in his generation. So there's a machlokas, the famous Rashi. Well, does that mean to say his generations, which wasn't so great? So in that generation, so you could be a star. If you come along at a time when people are at a low level, you could be a superstar by comparison.
I think it's an insult to Noah.
It could be an insult, yeah. But Chazal weren't interested they weren't interested in insulting him. They were interested in understanding the nature of the person. They said that if he had lived in the time of Avram, he would have been even greater. There's two ways to interpret it. Okay, but the Chazals were studying, the ideas, and they weren't out to disparage. Why would they want to? He was a big tzaddik. Noach saved the world, right? Noach found favor in the eyes of God.
It worked
Now, I'm trying-
120 years to build the ark.
That's correct. No. But you have to understand, when Chazal say something like that they don't mean, maybe today's people would have, they don't mean to be disparaging or insulting. They're studying the matter. What we want to understand. Their goal is to understand. There's different types of tzaddik. I'm sorry, Yaakov Meir, what do you want to say? Let's just think of old Zagin.
Maybe later.
Later, okay.
Because you were asking why this happens.
Go ahead. You don't want to.
I have my answer.
So if you want to state it, go ahead.
But it's not your way, because your way of thinking is rational.
Right.
So give your rational answer, and I give my not rational answer.
Okay. But I thought rational is good. A person should strive to be rational. But okay. So, as the question being why?
Yes, you asked it before.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know this siyata d'shmaya. I'm not arguing God's providence. That's for sure. That's for sure. But I'm trying to understand it from our standpoint, and I think it has to do with the Masorah, with the system that's been established. That the Jewish people have a Masorah, and in every generation, the Masorah, the Torah way of learning, the Torah way of thinking, makes you smart. It's that we say it on Shabbos morning. Well, let me just find it. Give me a second over here. The Psukei de Zimra. You know the Psukei de Zimra on Shabbos morning. This is as far as Yesidah. I'm not used to as far as Yesidah.
I play Sfarad.
You're Sephardic?
No, I'm Ashkenaz, but I play Sfarad.
1 second. Here it is. Here it is. The heavens declare the glory of God. What does that mean? The heavens declare, the heavens don't speak. Yeah, it means if you study the heavens, if you study the system of nature, if you study science the correct way, of course, not by kofrim. If you study science, then you'll see the glory of God. The infinite chachmas Hashem. In fact, that's what the Rambam says. That how do you come to the ahavas Hashem, the mitzvah to love God, to love God? The more you appreciate the chachma of Hashem in the creation, in the Torah, but in the creation as well, the more you have a love, you're drawn after the source of all this chachma. That's what he says in the Mishnah Dor. Now it says like this. B'chol ha'aretz, it says, Torah Hashem tamima mishivas nefesh. The Torah of Hashem is whole, it's complete, restores the soul. Edis Hashem ne'emana, the testimonies of God are faithful. Makimas pesi, that's an amazing statement. It makes wise the pesi. Pesi is the fool. What does that mean? No other system has this. In other words, you go to school today in America, whatever it is, you're not going to become smart because you went to school. If you're smart already, you're smart already. You may learn things, but it doesn't train the mind how to think. Okay? The American school system does not, that's why you have all this Narishkeiten going on, with critical race theory and all that stuff. Because people are not trained to think analytically. But, so it doesn't make the Torah, the system of Torah, and the study of Torah is Makimas Pesi. When you learn a Gemara, you analyze. You don't just absorb facts. You don't just absorb information, right? There's an expression for someone, because there's people that just absorb like sponges, but they don't really understand it. They don't really analyze it. So that's the Gemara. It's a chamor nosei sfarim. It's like a donkey that's carrying books on its back. It doesn't penetrate. It doesn't. But the objective in learning Torah is shakla v'tarya. Back, and you see in the Gemara itself, machlokas. He argues, he questions, he challenges. It's all logical. You have to admit that. You can't deny that the study of Torah is bringing of logic to the highest level.
Einstein didn't study Torah.
How's that?
Einstein did not study Torah.
Well, he was a genius. There was such a thing as a natural genius.
Freud did not.
Freud He knew. He quoted.
I know.
He quoted. But Freud was a genius. I'm not denying. There's geniuses, but they're both Jews, by the way.
Yes, but
Okay.
this doesn't give an answer.
Why is that an answer?
They are Jews, but they didn't study Torah.
That's the key. I understand that. First of all, like this. I'm not saying that only a Jew is smart. You have goyim. Yesh chachma. The Gemara says yesh chachma b'goyim.
Yes.
Yes, there's chachma. The Rambam studied Aristotle and so on and so forth. They were smart people, and they had a logical system. Okay, but it's not. Where did it? How long did it last? The Greek system where they studied didn't last that long. It couldn't survive. Jews survived because it's from generation to generation to generation. That's the point that I'm trying to make. And machimas pesi. That means your IQ will shoot up. If you're like if you study Gemara, it'll sharpen your mind. It'll bring out your talent. Machimas pesi. It'll bring out your intellectual ability. You'll be a genius. Each person according to his level. But you'll see a whole difference in the way you understand things. Good. You want to contest that? Go ahead.
I have a different outlook.
Okay, so then I'll finish my point. I don't mind listening to your outlook. I'm not opposed to listening to your outlook. Mikol malamdai hiskalti, okay? Which means from all of my teachers I've learned. So I try to have an open mind. I listen to what all you people say, okay? I don't just preach to you and lecture. It's a discussion. Anyways, that is so that's my take. That Hashem gave us a system. It's called the Masorah, which everybody attacks, like all the different movements. They want to negate the Masorah. Okay, they want to be able to...
They have something better.
They have something better. Better means their own Narishkeit. They want to... It's an ego thing. They don't want to be subservient to the Torah Hashem. If you're going to follow the Torah Hashem, you have to be humble. You have to recognize superior being, superior wisdom. Your understanding of things is not the high, but they feel their liberalism and this and that, and the way they feel, their moral feeling determines everything. That's not the way. That's not the way of Judaism. But Judaism's revelation, the true morality, the true ethics is the one that's been revealed by Hashem. Okay, which far superior to anything that man could invent. And our task is to study God's revelation, God's will, and to the best of our ability, to understand it and to live according to it. And that will bring about the tikkun olam. That will bring about the perfection of the world. And if you find things that don't make sense, you'll find a lot of things in Torah that don't make sense, and even things that might appear repugnant to you. How is that? I don't like that. It doesn't fit with my morality. So, like the Rav Soloveitchik said, Rav Soloveitchik coined the phrase. I think it's a great phrase. Rav Soloveitchik, he was a Rebbe, my Rebbe, but such a genius. He coined this phrase. He tells the story. I don't know if you've ever read this story. It's a very nice story, interesting story. Because he was, the Rosh Hashiva of YU, but he was also a rabbi in Boston. Rabbi Shul. He started a high school over there, Maimonides High School. And he had his own minyan, and it was a minyan, and people came. It was let's call it a shul. So he had the congregants that he had to minister to, whatever word you want to use. So there was this guy, Jewish guy, and wasn't from. He met this girl, and he wanted to get married, so he wanted to have a Jewish marriage. So he went to Rabbi Soloveitchik. And he brought the bride to be, his fiance, and this and that. And then, so they had a long conversation. Rabbi Soloveitchik gave him a whole conversation.
She wasn't Jewish.
No, she was Jewish.
Was she?
Yeah, no, he wouldn't. Rabbi Soloveitchik's not going to marry someone that's not Jewish, a couple that's not Jewish, obviously. But it's connected to that. So then at the end, he asks Rabbi Soloveitchik, there was a custom to go and visit the grave of your parents before you get married. So he went there. Apparently he hadn't been there before. On the stone of his father, there was these hands, like that, hands. Okay. So that's a kohanim because of the duchening. When they bless the people, they raise their hands.
She was divorced.
And she was a Gioris. She was a Gioris, and she was really frum. She kept this, she was serious. The guy wasn't that frum. All right, so he asked, Salvation told him, you're a Kohen. A Kohen is not allowed to marry a Gioris, a convert. So he said, so she said, that's it, they had to split up. He said she was okay. The woman was okay. The woman was really, he is a different story, but he had no choice. She wouldn't marry him after that. She wouldn't marry him because it's contrary to Jewish law. No, but Rabbi Soloveitchik said, we always try, if possible, to find a heter, if it's possible. Because we don't want to make things difficult for people. That's an important point. I mean, a Rav should not seek to chumras, stringencies. If you want to be stringent for yourself, I see a lot of that, like the fast days that are the rabbinic fast days, which all of them are except for Yom Kippur's. So there's different times when you could break the fast. So I always went out in all the shuls I was rabbi, I would tell the people the easiest time. Okay. Now, if I want to wait, I'll wait for myself. But I held it's wrong. I held it's wrong to force people to endure pain, even 1 minute. If the fast is over at 5:20, I'm not going to say 5:25. What right do you have to keep that person in pain for an additional minute? I have a complaint that a lot of shuls subsequently, when I'm not where I wasn't the rabbi, and Yom Kippur, they don't end it. They want to keep going. Well, do it on your own, but finish it. Let the people go home. They're fasting 25 hours already. It's enough. So don't be a tzaddik at somebody else's expense. You want to be a tzaddik, do it privately. Okay.
Shekodesh to you, first be a mensch, then a tzaddik.
Good. That's a good point. Okay, very good. No, I hold. That is very, very important, that concept. No, a lot of people don't have that idea. A lot of people are only from davening, things like that. I remember years ago, remind me to get back to Rabbi Soloveitchik, I don't want to forget. Years ago, when I came here for a bar mitzvah, one of my congregants, I was in Long Island at the time, so one of my congregants made a bar mitzvah. So I came for the weekend. Friday, was it Friday night? I'm not sure. We davened at the Kotel. Okay. So there was this guy, one of these guys, like a real tzaddik. And with the big white, I think that's the Nana group. What are they?
Breslov.
Huh? Breslov. I'm not against Breslov, I'm not no, but he was in a very loud, annoying kind of a voice. It was like in a rapture. I can't dive in. What kind of? Where is he? There's no what?
All in white.
In white? I don't know. I don't remember. Could be. No, I'm saying it's like I don't think he meant anything by it. But if you got to be concerned about your fellow man. What you're diving to Hashem, but you're excluding the whole world. You don't care about other people. I can't. A little bit of consideration. That which is distasteful to you. So I'm wondering, what is the value of somebody's tefillah if in that tefillah he's acting in a manner which is not cognizant, not sympathetic to other people. That's
no self-awareness.
No self-awareness. That's a good point. So again, I didn't know. I don't think it was bad motives and intentional, but he's so completely
Not self-aware.
Yeah, enraptured with religion. So to the extent that he's not cognizant of the world around him, bit of a problem. Getting back to Rabbi Soloveitchik, so he was saying that, like he's always tried all of his life when people have problems and dilemmas to find the heter, if it's possible. He says sometimes it's not possible. And he says sometimes, this is the phrase that I was mentioning, sometimes you have to surrender to the Almighty. Surrender to the Almighty. That's not the philosophy of the Reform and the Conservative today. No, the Almighty has to surrender to them. They don't do that. When they find something, gay marriage, abortion, all these things, right, which are clear. I mean, these are not doubtful areas that you can maybe work out a heter. You can't, okay? So instead of saying, well, it doesn't, because it's not in line with the times. They have to be in line with the spirit of the times. Okay, we're in this today's world. Today's world is very narcissistic, very gratify your desires. That's the highest goal, to gratify your desires. And if these people, that's their desire, they're two men or two women of this, although two women is not so bad according to Judaism, even though it's prohibited. But it's prohibited. But two men is worse. Okay, two men carries the death penalty, not two women. But since that goes contrary to their way of looking at things and so on and so forth, and they have to be in line with modern society, no, that has to surrender to them. That has to surrender to them. Or else, which is even worse, they'll have their rabbis that are supposedly clever, they'll darshan, they'll darsh to try and work it out within the Torah that this is the right thing to do. Even though it's clear cut. How can you? I'd rather they just said, look, we're not going to keep that part of the Torah. Don't try and distort, and so on and so forth. So that is a very, very significant statement. There are times when you have to surrender to the Almighty. You surrender your own mind, okay? Your rationality. Yes. I hold it's not surrendering, because rationality dictates that I listen to Hashem, because Hashem knows that. It's ridiculous to say he knows much more than me. Even that's crazy. So that's rational. Okay? So even if the Torah, you see that in the Torah itself. Where do you see that? What story illustrates the idea that even if Hashem tells you to do something that seems crazy, you do it? Where do we have that? What story? The Akedah. That's what I'd say is the Akedah. Because what sense did it make? After all these years, and you said that to your children I'll give this land, and he's your child, and so on and so forth, and it was a miracle that Sarah gave him the child, and now he's saying to take him and slaughter him. Why? Why would I do that? If he would have said, listen, God's dictates have to make sense to me, which is the modern philosophy, he wouldn't have done it. Because he couldn't justify it, he couldn't explain why. It's not a rational command, but it becomes rational when it is from Hashem. It's a recognition of how small we are in comparison with the creator of the universe. So if God tells you to do something, now, how do I know that God would want me to do that? How do I know?
Would you have done it?
Would I have done it? I don't know. Listen.
I would not.
Okay. But I wouldn't have done it because I may not have been courageous enough to do it. I may not have been strong. I would have recognized that it's the right thing. See, if that happened to me, it's not going to happen to me, because how do I know it's going? You need to be a Navi. All right, but let's say that God didn't speak to me, but let's say we had a Navi. Let's say you had Moshe Rabbeinu, okay, or Shmuel, or whatever, Yoshua. Let's say you had a valid Navi. Now, a valid Navi, theoretically, this is possible. He could have Hashem could have told him, go to Rabbi Mann. I don't know if he would have called me Rabbi Mann, but he would go to that fellow over there and tell him, this is what I want you to do. To take your son, your whatever the command is. So now there's no doubt in my mind, if Moshe Rabbeinu is telling me, there's no doubt in my mind that this is what Hashem is telling me to do.
You know what Rabbi Cook said about the story of...
Let me finish and then I'll give you. Let me finish. Now, the only thing I don't know is whether I would have been strong enough to fulfill that command. I might have been too weak. And I said, I can't do it. Look, for example, let's say a guy, okay? Let's say a brutal king or a ruler guy puts a gun to your head and says, worship that idol. Worship that idol, I'm going to shoot you. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, but you haven't been through what Abraham went through also.
Okay.
So he's coming from a different state of mind.
Yeah.
I think Hashem wanted to explain to the to the world for all time, child sacrifice ends here.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But Hashem didn't tell that to Abraham. Didn't tell him that.
Right.
He just told him, go and do it.
Valeu.
Yeah, Valeu Shem Le'olo. So, what are you supposed to do though if someone puts a gun to your head? And says, worship that
It's
idol?
a different state of being.
Well, what are you supposed to do? What would you do? What would you do? I don't know what I would do. I know that the right thing to do is let him kill me. That's a case of Yaharek al Yava. Be killed and don't be over. Don't violate.
I think there is a difference. It is in the Pharisee or privately.
Not when it comes to Avodah Zarah.
No?
Nope. No, the big three, as they say. A murder. Someone says, here's a gun, I want you to shoot him. I want you to shoot him, or I'll shoot you. Are you allowed to kill that person? No, in murder. In general, in most of the laws of the Torah, if it's a matter of life and death, you violate the Torah. Okay, you know that, you violate it. Yom Kippur, you have to eat, you eat on Yom Kippur. Okay? There's no mitzvah that stands in the way of pikuach nefesh, which is loss of life, except for these three. Okay, like adultery, like the serious sexual crimes, and I'll do that to save your life. Avodah zarah, not allowed to do it. That's even in private. And the third one is murder. So let's say you're in a situation like that. What are you going to do? That's the question. I don't know. Because in order to say, okay, go ahead and kill me, I'm not going to bow down to that idol, you have to have a tremendous amount of strength and courage. Yeah, I'm willing to give up my life for the sake of Hashem. That's the biggest kiddush Hashem. The biggest kiddush Hashem. Go straight to Olam Haba, that's the highest level. But the Rambam says, let's say you didn't do it. Let's say you couldn't do it, and you shot the guy. You killed someone because you couldn't take the bullet in your own head. He says,
this is an act of self-defense we're talking about.
No, self-defense. You're allowed to kill the guy who's telling you to do it.
Yeah.
No, but you're not allowed to kill the one he wants you to kill. There's a third guy here. He wants you to shoot this guy. Okay? And he's saying, if you don't shoot him, I'm going to shoot you. So you couldn't do it. You didn't have the strength to give up your life. And you shot the guy. The Rambam says you can't punish him in business. Because he didn't do that with free will. It was coercion. You see, he failed to sanctify God's name. He failed. It's an avera. You're not allowed to do it. It's an avera. But you can't give this guy any punishment because that is not considered free will. It was too, a guy's afraid of dying. So he acted without any real choice. He didn't have a choice. In this framework, there was no choice. So that's what I'm saying to Yaakov Meir's point, that if any one of us, I could ask you guys, let's say God told you the same thing. It's not just me. Okay? That take your son, and bring him as a sacrifice and so on and so forth. What would you do? Do you know what you would do? Maybe you do. I'm not, maybe you do. Maybe you've been in the battlefield and you've had cases like that and you've had the courage to do what you had to do. I don't know. I'm only saying that I know what the right thing is. I know if somebody asked me, I know what I would tell him. I know what the right thing to do is, but that doesn't mean I would do it. That would be a sin. That would be a weakness in me. Okay? That would be a weakness. Because God's telling you to do it. You should go ahead and do it. I can't do it. So that's a weakness. I can't answer the question. I'd have to see what happens when if I don't think it's going to happen, that particular case. Now, go ahead. What do you want to say about that? I thought you wanted to respond.
About the Akedah or about the rationality of...
Whatever you want to say.
Rav Kook said that whilst he was going to follow all the mitzvahs, all the commands of God, he created a malach. Because there is written in Gemara, when you do a mitzvah, you create a malach. Right?
Yeah.
So God told him what he told him. And then comes a malach and tells him, Al tishlach yadcha.
El Hanar, yeah.
El Hanar. Who is the malach? According to Rabbi Kook and Rabbi Nemirov, the malach is a chus, is his conscience.
Okay.
And through his conscience, as Rashi says, he understood that God didn't say v'shachateu, but God said v'haleu. This is rationality.
That's rationality.
Yes.
Is that good or not good?
No, this is good, but it's his mind who told me God can't ask me something like that.
Okay, that's an interpretation.
Okay.
That's not the...
Going back to the other point,
yeah.
Why are we different? Because we are different. As you said also in the genius area.
Right.
And you said most probably because we study Torah, Gemara, this and that.
Right.
I said that Einstein did not, Marx did not, Freud did not, and they were geniuses.
Right.
And they were Jews.
Right.
So there is a saying.
But Freud's background, his parents, grandparents, they studied Torah.
Well, yes.
And Einstein too.
Okay, I agree. So this is in the DNA. What does it mean in the DNA? והנפש השנית בישראל היא נפש מאלוהי ממעל. And the Rabbi said mamash, which means we Jews, only we Jews, we have in our nefesh a part of God. God is knowledge, God is everything. That's why. There is no rational reason why we are different. The reason is because we are a real part of God, which the Goyim are not.
Okay, that's a very controversial idea.
No.
I don't know that I accept it. The way you're presenting it.
You don't accept it, but it is in...
The way you present it. The way you're presenting it.
Well, it is written,
You can't
"Nefesh hashenit b'Yisrael,
You
nefesh melochai mima'al."
you can't have a part of God in you. Literally, Amash.
This is in Yov.
If
It's
you
written
understand-
in Yov.
No, but you have to understand it, how it's supposed to be intended. If you're going to say that, we believe Hashem Echad. We believe that God is the true unity. There's no parts to God.
Okay,
If
so
you're
you
going to
don't...
take it very, excuse me, if you're going to take that very literally, that there's actually a part of, like,
A spark.
it doesn't matter. If it's something which is part of God and it's in you, then you're saying that God is not a true, to me that's a
So you
negation.
don't believe in the Seder Ishtarshelut.
What?
You don't believe in the Seder of Ishtarshelut.
What do you mean by that?
Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What does
Well,
that
this
mean?
is...
I'm not an expert on Kabbalistic thinking. I agree. I'm not 100% sure. But that idea as presented is very problematic. You have to interpret it in a way that makes sense. Look. According to you, Rav Kook interpreted the story with the Malachim. He didn't literally. He just worked it out in a different way.
Yes.
So the fact that something is stated in a certain way doesn't mean that that's the understanding. When it comes to Hashem, we can't take things literally because according to the Torah, Hashem stretched out his mighty hand.
But you didn't give a
Okay?
rational
Well, Hashem
reason.
gets angry at you.
You didn't give a rational reason why we Jews are different.
That's not rational. The fact that we're committed to a way of life which is rooted in the study of Torah, which is Machkimas
A
Besi.
small minority.
That's not rational, and that affects the whole nation.
No, it's transnational, it's transrational.
What does that transrational mean?
Transrational means it exceeds rationality.
Okay, so
Beyond
that's
rationality.
fine. That's good. I mean, it's good. It's not, but it makes sense. When I'm talking, it makes. You could use the word that you want, but I mean, it makes sense. It's illogical. I'm not saying it's the only factor. I'm not saying it's the only factor. It's very hard for me to accept that the Jews have a certain type of a racial. By the way, this whole thing with the Whoopi Goldberg thing. I was going to ask you what the takeaway. The Whoopi Goldberg man.
Hmm?
What happened in the news? Whoopi Goldberg. You never
Yes.
heard? You all heard of Whoopi
Yes.
Goldberg?
Yes.
You're looking at me like you're not shaking your head, boy.
I don't, there's a worthiness to it, but not a great worthiness of discussing God.
I'm not discussing it. I'm just. No, because that came up. Excuse me, because that came up with the racial thing.
I disagree with my late father. My late father that said, "Schwarze Becheine."
Well, no, I think the comments that Whoopi Goldberg made is indicative in the American society of somebody that is not aware of the specifics of the Holocaust, and they put everything into a category of man's humanity demand. What she said was not anti-Semitic, but it was very ignorant of what really took place with the Holocaust itself.
She was speaking as a universalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have 1 minute to...
But she's right, Judaism
I
is
have
not
to,
about race.
One second. Excuse me. I'll tell you what. I wrote an article on it. Okay. So if anybody, I'll send it.
You should bring it in or send it to us.
I'll send it to you. I can't. I don't have a physical copy of it.
Okay.
Okay.
So email it to us.
The point being, the takeaway. What's the lesson? What's the limud? What's the teaching? What do you take away from that?
It's a matter between whites.
Well, I think Israel's position was really the correct one. When they offered to bring her to Yad Vashem and spend a few days at Yad Vashem to understand what took place at the Holocaust and have a full understanding, so that she can find out firsthand from those that were specifically affected and persecuted through the Holocaust.
Right. Excuse me.
If I could just point out, the term anti-Semitism never existed before Wilhelm Marr in the 1880s defined it, to add a racial component to the historical religious hatred of Jews.
Right.
But we were never a race,
Okay.
because we're a composite of people. I mean, could a Chinese person become Jewish? Could a black person
That's
become
what I'm
Jewish?
trying to say. Exactly.
Definitely.
That's
We
my
can't
point.
become a Chinese person or a
No,
black
I'm saying,
person.
but you see that Ethiopians, every people in the world can become Jewish, and they don't have this whatever it is, this superior.
So it's not a racial
They have.
component.
They have. The moment they make
You're saying it. You can say
they
whatever.
get it.
Excuse me. Who will? If I send it to you, put in. Well, I can't send it to everybody. I don't have the email addresses. If I'll give it
We'll
to
give
one.
you the email address.
What?
We'll give you our email address.
Well, okay. Well, take it.
Good. We'll take a piece of paper, we'll give you the email address.
All right. Fine. Okay. It's a different angle. I think you'll find it interesting. Yeah, pass it around. Each guy write in his email address, whoever wants it. Okay, that'll be, okay, good. That's a good idea. No, I just mentioned her because there's a big to-do. Tumult about what she said.
But it's a racially obsessed world.
That's
You
right.
call someone a racist, that's the worst
That's
thing you could do to say to another person.
And the worst thing they can say about Israel is
But
apartheid.
Judaism is not about racism. In the German mind it is.
This
But
guy-
there's
this
no
rabbi-
racial component to Judaism.
This rabbi wrote an article, which I thought was interesting.
Shem Kama Yafet.
He said that no, Judaism is a race, but it's not based on the racial characteristics of other peoples, which is skin color. Or he said, I get my point. It's a race which is defined by moral and ethical ideas.
But that's not a
spiritual.
race. A race
I know, but
is a physical
I don't think it-
characteristic that one group has that
No,
another group does
that's
not.
what I'm disputing. I agree with that 100%. But we're having this dispute over here that there's nothing. I'm saying again that to be Jewish is to subscribe to the Torah way of life. Okay, that you're basing your whole way of life is based upon serving Hashem in accordance with the Torah, with the written Torah and the oral Torah.
And no race is excluded from
No race is excluded. And my contention is that what makes the Jews a superior people is, thank you very much. Anybody else, did you want to put yours down? Glenn Rubel, R-U-B-L? Somebody else? And if you want to put yours down, if you want. What makes the Jews superior has to do with the extent to which they, activate their
Torah-based values.
Torah-based values and knowledge and so on and so forth. The more you're steeped in that, the greater you are and you influence the world. That's my approach. Okay?
The Reform are Jewish non-Jews. They don't have to base themselves on Torah-based values.
I can take this with me. I can't read it right now.
No,
Then you hold it. Okay? I don't make a copy of it.
I will send it to
can't
you.
send it to me. Okay?
so you have to give us your email.
Yeah, you can have my email. My email is very easy. I'm Rabbi Mann. So my email is Reb, R-E-B,
R-A
R-E-B, Reb, Mann, M-A-N-N, okay, the number 21, at AOL.com.
AOL.
AOL, RebMan21 at AOL.com. Okay? Okay.
People want to say that Whoopi Goldberg is not a racist, but she is. She's a proponent of BLM, Black Lives Matter, intersectionality. These are critical race theory. These are all components that racists adhere to.
I agree. I'm not arguing. Why did she? I'll ask you another question. It just occurred to me. A big thing that they made, these groups, cultural appropriation. You've heard of the term cultural appropriation?
Right.
That means you can't take over the cultural things that belong to another group, right?
And they call you a racist for doing that.
Isn't she doing it though? Where'd she get the name Goldberg? Where'd she get the name Goldberg? She said her mother said if you want to be successful as a comedian, you gotta have a Jewish
You
name.
have a Jewish name.
You gotta have a Jewish name. So she's using it to further her career, but that's cultural, that's a Jewish name. You have no right. I personally don't believe that. And if you wanna, I don't see what's wrong. If you produce something that's of value so other cultures can adopt it too, well, why would I care? But they made a big deal out of that we stole, because everything is what they stole from them. Oh, so what if no one pointed this out? That she's guilty of cultural appropriation. Because who said, why kill you're not Goldberg? Okay, that's a Jewish name. And you're using that name for your purposes. Okay, so that's a good point.
It's a very bad thing that we're defining, and Jews are doing this, defining ourselves as a race.
I agree with you on that.
The Germans did it because they invented it.
No.
Hitler bought into Wilhelm Marr.
No, the Catholic Church invented it.
A race?
And,
No, they
and
defined it
Hitler-
as a religion.
And Hitler was fulfilling the wills of the Catholic Church
Two
indirectly.
ends.
To me, he was looking for another reason to layer the hatred against the Jews.
Well, he had a reason, but it was easy for Hitler to dovetail on what had already been established for 1,500 years.
But that was
It was-
based on religious hatred.
It was an underlying.
They wanted to be the chosen.
Yeah,
They
it was
wanted
an
to
I'll
be
tell you why,
Underlying
excuse me,
hatred.
I think I have a very good proof, a very good raya, why Judaism does not hold from this whole business of racism. I think it's a perfect raya. And that is, if you go back to Bereshis, one second. It says at the very creation, it says, Vayivra Lokem Es Ha'adam, right? I'm sorry. Vayivra Lokem Es Ha'adam B'Tzalmo, and God created the human in His image. B'Tzelem Elokim Baroto, Zachor Nekeva Barotam. Zachor Nekeva Barotam. Okay, so why it doesn't say Jew, it doesn't say guy, it doesn't say white, it doesn't say black. Adam, man, is created b'tzelem Elokim.
See, what is it? Vayivra?
I'm sorry, what? That is the essence of man, is tzelem Elokim. So whoever has the tzelem Elokim was created by Hashem, and we don't distinguish one from the other. We don't distinguish one from the other because the person has free will.
What does Vayitach?
Top of Nishmas Chayim.
Where is it?
That's there, it's there. Vahi Adam Nefesh Chaya. Give me a second. Yeah, Vayitach. Vahi Adam Nefesh Chaya. And Rashi says, Nefesh Chaya, a living being, means that a speaking being. That he was ability to speak and to communicate.
Memale.
Mamalel. Okay, very good. You know your stuff. So, anyways, this has been a long discussion. What I tried to do in my article, because I'm always focusing. What do we learn from this? After all these big things that come up and all these issues, so okay, we can criticize her. You can make fun. I said my purpose is not to criticize her or to put her down. My whole, and you'll see in the article, for me the lesson, what is the lesson? That's what I'm asking you people. I want to hear your opinion. If somebody asked you the question, what lesson do I learn from the Whoopi Goldberg thing? What they call the takeaway? What do you take away from it?
We are a race-obsessed world.
Okay, that's your takeaway. Okay, what's the teaching though? That's just an observation. What can I learn from this?
What Rashi
What we
said.
can learn from this is how fantastically all-inclusive Judaism is, because it's the only ism that does not exclude anybody. No racial group, no one. That's the amazing thing about Judaism.
That's what
and that's the model, and that's the light to the world. Nobody else does that.
Well, one second. Suppose somebody says to you, well, what about Christianity? Did they recognize?
Christianity is made up bullshit. That's all we can say. Every phase of it is made up.
So, but they're not.
Nobody knows what Jesus said. We only know what Paul said. We only know what Peter said.
Again, I don't disagree
Nothing.
with you. But whatever it is, I agree with you. It's a man-made religion, 100%. And so is Islam.
That is a man-made religion. It's bullshit.
Okay, the only real religion from Hashem is Judaism. No question, of course. Okay, but the person will say, yeah, but institutionally, they're not racist. Because anybody can become a Christian, I think. Right? So why you're saying we're the only ones that don't discriminate with races. They also don't discriminate with races.
But it's an ideology that says if you don't believe in us, we can kill you. Judaism doesn't say that.
Okay, but you
The
find
Muslims say, not the Christians.
Huh?
The Muslims say, not the Christians.
The Martians?
no, the Christians don't
Muslims.
say that.
Muslims.
How many people were killed in the name of Christianity? Look what they did to Akiva.
You're
Yeah,
100% right. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. See, all right, fine. I got that. There's no question about that. Anybody else want to say what's the lesson? What would you take away from the case with Whoopi Goldberg? I think it's a very important lesson. Okay, a very important lesson. A Musar Haskell, as we say. A Musar, you can learn something. It's very, but it's not what you're thinking. It's not what you're thinking.
Anti-Semiot.
You think she's an anti-Semite?
Beg your pardon?
You think Whoopi Goldberg is anti-Semitic?
Yes.
Really? I didn't get that sense.
She believes in Black Lives Matter, racist group, intersectionality, racist
No, but she never said
ideology.
anything bad about Jews, as far as I'm concerned. She takes a Jewish name. Why would she take a Jewish name?
It does because it says the Jews are racist.
Yes, she said it's a matter between different groups of whites. Exactly.
But
She
how is
said-
that she's wrong. She's wrong. But how is it anti-Semitic? It's mistaken. Just because something is mistaken doesn't make it anti-Semitic.
Because she supports those
But you're
that
bringing
want
up
to
something
destroy the Jews.
You're bringing up something else. I don't know if her intention is to destroy the Jews. You're saying that.
You can be openly anti-Jew, anti-Semite, or you can be hiddenly.
But you know what's going on in her mind? And you're
No,
saying,
we don't know.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Here's, we'll see. Okay? Also, by the way, she said after this guy from the Anti-Defamation League explained to her and this and that, so she's apologized. She's apologized. And she says it's man's inhumanity to man and it's racism. But let me ask you a question. Is that true? It's man's inhumanity to man? That statement itself, nobody analyzed that. I analyzed it in my thing. Is that statement true, that it's man's inhumanity? No, that's putting it mildly. Hello, it's much. Are you kidding? You can't describe the Holocaust with those words. He said a very good thing, Elie Wiesel. He said, in order to talk about the Holocaust, we need a new language. We need a new language because our language there's no term. I said, well, maybe is cruelty a better word? Is bestiality? I said, no term is good because it's nonsense. To say it's man's inhumanity. Inhumanity is a mild term.
This is the Universalist credo.
It's a mild term. I mean, you got to study what they did. What they did can't be described. The absolute cruelty without limit, the sadism. Little kids, they would torture parents. You can't comprehend. Rabbi Soloveitchik writes. Rabbi Soloveitchik has a commentary on the kinos. You know what the kinos are? That's what we say in Tisha B'Av. Okay, and after each one, he talks about it and he brings up what happened in our time, how it corresponds. He said that, I forget which kina he ties it to. That the Germans did a similar thing, ripping apart people. He said his own cousins were married. They were just on there like the Sheva Brachas, the week. And the Germans got them, and they tied them up to like two cars, and the cars went in different, ripped them apart.
They took that from the Spanish in the Inquisition. With
the most
horses.
cruel kinds. There's no, and as I said, and what they did to children. What? No one. So you can't even begin.
This is where pure rationality can bring man.
What do you mean? They were rational?
By pure.
You're saying he was
they
rational.
were.
How was he
From
rational?
their point of view, they were.
From their point of view, that's a different story.
But
Just
rationality is a point of view.
Well, no, that's not what I mean. By rationality, I don't mean that. I mean something which you can defend, which is logical, okay, which can be demonstrated.
There was a logic in there.
Which means, what's the logic? These lies, sheker, that the Jews are, what they said
The
about
logic
the
is survival of the
You see,
fittest.
the mistake of the,
Yeah.
let me tell you one, let me conclude. I'll conclude on this note. See, all the anti-Semites throughout history, starting from Paro, and then the Spanish Inquisition, and then in modern times, and you have Hitler, they all attacked the Jew, okay? And it was all sheker, it's all false. The things they said about, eventually people will wake up and recognize that sheker nachla. We received, our parents gave us sheker.
It's nothing.
But, let me finish, let me make my point. Because they said that the Jew is disloyal. They said all the terror, he destroys societies and he poisons and this and that. It's not true. The Jew is the most desirable citizen. What do you want from the Jews? Take a look at in terms of crime. The Jew has the least amount of crime.
It's
in
about
terms of
replacement
violence,
theology.
in terms
That's what it
of
always is
making
about.
a family life, in terms of community, in terms of making every society they came into, they enrich. So it's just sheker. How do you say, you want to kill Jews, but don't tell me that they're disloyal, that they stab in the back. The Jews, I'm just reading this book about Rabbi Schachter. There's a new book by Rabbi Schachter by Madoff. Are you familiar with it, Rabbi? Oh. All right, he was American chaplain, okay, and he joined the army. A chaplain joined the army, and he was among the first guys to liberate the camp, Buchenwald, and he spent trying to help the survivors and so on and so forth. So he talks about how important it is in those days, how important it is for Jews to serve in the military because of America. And to be loyal to the country and everything America did for us. The Jews, in Germany too, they fought. They had more medals in World War I. All the tinus, going back to Paro, every tina that they've launched against you is sheker. It's totally false.
That's the demonstration.
If they recognize the truth about the Jew, I mean, even Hitler, interestingly enough, that the scientists, see, the atom bomb, the nuclear power, what helped America become is the Jews. He kicked those. If he'd have retained them, he would have had their brains and their nuclear physics and so on and so forth. But the Jews have been the most loyal. So it's irrational. Any leader of any country that will kick out the Jews, country's going to go down the drain. It's the most irrational. Hitler is the most irrational person you could possibly imagine. It's not that shows that rationality. If he was rational, he wouldn't have had this. He wouldn't have had a Holocaust. How can it be that this is rational? That's my taina. That's my response. However,
What is your take on the Goldberg affair?
which Goldberg?
Whoopi Goldberg.
What about it?
You said we can get something out of it.
Oh yeah, as I said, you can read my article, but my takeaway from the Whoopi Goldberg thing is, it confirms what Chazal said. Chazal, the Rambam brings it down. A person should increase silence. He shouldn't just excessive verbiage. We talk too much. That's maybe. It's maybe chay. The person engages in excessive talk. Okay? Today you have that culture that, it used to be athletes. Why are athletes? They'll grow beards now. And actors too. I don't know if it's Letterman, why are they all suddenly growing beards? What does that have to do with sports? Or athletics? Because they're not content just to be an entertainer. No, they're geniuses. They have this profound insight into life, okay? So they want to be recognized. So a beard makes a person look scholarly. I'm not taking it against the beard. I mean, a rabbi, whatever. I got it, okay? Because that's his life. His life is learning and teaching ideas, right? But why would basketball players? They want to create, it's a certain image, they want to give the appearance of being very, very profound people. And they want to express their opinions on anything in the world, which they don't know. Even the award, like the Academy Awards, you get these actors and actresses that don't know anything. They get up there and they make these, like they're geniuses, opinions. She is an example of that. She has to spout. She doesn't know what she's talking about, but she has to spout. So I'm saying, I one time said that a person's worst enemies in this world
Ego.
his best friend and his own mouth. But his own mouth is the word. Your worst enemy is your own mouth, because we talk. Rabbi,
But the bigger question is, why do people want to listen to this?
whatever it is, but why do we talk? We talk, and when you talk too much, you say stupid things. I mean, you can't always say a smart thing. Instead of thinking, we should be very judicious with our words. We should think more than we talk. And that's what an example of this. She got into this whole mess because she had to express. She's a genius. She knows about the whole, and this and that. She had to. When she should have been quiet. Should have been quiet. So that, I took that
So
as
if you
being...
turn on the TV on the View, you'll just listen to an hour of quiet.
Yeah, all stupidity. That is a very important thing. But we engage. I'm not out to condemn her. I'm always looking. What can I learn from this that can improve my life? Can improve other people's lives. That's all I'm interested in these stories. And I think that's a big lesson. It's not the only lesson, but as you'll see, you'll read the article.